Good
Not really.
evening, and do we have someone calling in? We're
Betty.
recording, okay. All right, excellent. Good evening and welcome to the July 16th City Council meeting, and we are about to go into executive session. Do they knock before this starts? I'll read it and then they'll knock. Okay. The Eugene City Council will now meet in executive session held pursuant to ORS 192.6602I to discuss performance evaluations of public officers and employees. Representatives of the news media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend the executive session. All other members of the audience are asked to leave the room. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decision may be made in executive session. At the end of the executive session, we may return to open session and welcome the audience back into the room. make that really clear.
Public.
So we'll go out of executive session. I'll wait until I get some knocks.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, great. So welcome now again to the Eugene, what do you need this? To the Eugene City Council work session, July 16th. And we are here again to talk about our police auditor. So I'll turn it over to you again, Carrie.
Great, thank you. My name is Carrie Baraldo. I'm the Interim Human Resources Director here at the city, and tonight we are here to discuss the annual evaluation process for City Police Auditor Mark Gissner. Mark was hired with the city on June 29th, 2009, so this is his 9th evaluation process. This year's evaluation process included results of feedback solicited by the Civilian Review Board, a summary of feedback collected in a survey from a list of citizens, and a self-evaluation submitted by Mr. Gissner. A summary of this feedback and the police auditor's self-evaluation were sent to the council in advance of this work session. And at this point, I'd turn it over to Mayor to provide him with his feedback.
Great. Thank you so much. And I just want to kick this off by repeating what I just said in the executive session, which is how much I appreciate the work you do, how much I appreciate my regular meetings with you, how candid and clear you are, how helpful you are in giving me a perspective of what is actually going on in our community and with our respect to our police. And that my comments in your evaluation, repeating them, that I am so impressed by your efforts in community engagement. I think it's making a huge difference, and I think it's a great model for us as a city of how to reach out to people that we don't always hear from. So just want to thank you for that work. And I do have Chris in the queue, and Claire, and Emily. Okay, take it away, Chris.
Thank you. It really is a pleasure to give you an excellent rating again, which I've given you since you were hired, because I think you do an excellent job, and you've really taken this position and really made it work for the city of Eugene and for all the people here. And it gets back to the notion of there's what you do and then how you do it, and those are kind of two distinct parts to talk about. And first, the what you do, and I think from the very first, what was important to me was that your role was to help, not to just catch. I mean, if catching bad guys is part of the job, that's okay. But I think the principal job that you do is to help the police department to become a better organization, a better culture, better response, better effectiveness. And I think that's really exactly what you've been trying to do. And I think approaching it as trying to help as opposed to just catch is the better approach, and has worked extraordinarily well. And I know that's something that you're still working on, and I think the Civilian Review Board really supports you in that function as well. And I'm very glad to see how well that dynamic works. The other side of the coin then is how you do it. And I think that's an area where the city council's role in being your supervisor and your evaluator, I think, is a critical one as well. Because your office could be trying to accomplish certain things, but not doing it in a very functional way. And I'm really pleased to see that not only do you do things that I consider to be important to do, but I think your office operates with a very high level of professionalism, expertise, and coordination. And I think the comments in here say you might want to get out in the community a little more, you might want to be able to do this thing a little more. Those are all great things, but it's much better than having somebody say your office is dysfunctional, it's not working right, you're getting into fights with people, things are creating problems. And I know you work very hard to not be that way, and what I want to do is acknowledge in public that I think not only are you doing the right things, but I think you're doing them the right way, which is just as important, because you can damage your relationship with us and with the community by trying to do the right things but doing them very poorly. And I don't think that's you at all. And I think part of what has made you much more successful than your predecessors is you understand what that role is and how that role of communication and cooperation can really produce the right kind of result. And so from that standpoint, I rate you as excellent. And I think you get both sides of that equation really well, and it's been a pleasure to work with you.
Thank you. Claire?
Thank you. So, Mark, I gave you a rating of excellent for your performance evaluation this year. As I also have in past years, I agree with all the comments that Chris just made. And in particular for me, I think the thing you did in this last year is you really embraced the charge that I believe a number of people at this table and folks in the community gave you to increase your community outreach, to increase the profile of your office. And I feel like I have seen you do that, especially reaching out to the Latino community and other parts of our community that may not really know about the service you provide or understand what it means for them. So I really appreciate that you've taken that charge very seriously, and as Chris has pointed out, not only have you tried to implement it, it seems to me that you have done it very well. And I agree with the mayor that it's very encouraging. It gives us a model that other departments might be able to draw from for their own outreach efforts. And then secondly, I wanted to note that the Civilian Review Board also gave you an evaluation as part of this process, and they gave you very high marks as a body, and this is a group that is charged with giving scrutiny to your work. So I think it speaks volumes about the high degree of professionalism and integrity with which you approach your work, and I really appreciate what you're doing for us in our community, and thank you for being here.
Thank you. Emily.
Thank you. As I said in the exec session, I read the independent police auditor's report this morning, and everybody should. It's fascinating what people complain about, and it gives you a good insight to the things that are going on and what sort of things bother people. I also think it was interesting that working towards a resolution and information, the people who were complaining didn't always come back. And I think those are successes also, because sometimes people just need to be heard and seen as to what they're going through. So thank you for this report and the good work that made it possible. I think you have had really good outreach, and I'm excited to that continuing, because you do good work and the community needs to know that you're available. When I've needed to meet with you because there's some quick thing coming, you've been very responsive to accommodate my, half-hour schedule and to get me the answers that were really helpful. You give me information both about the police and about the community and how council and staff work, as well as how we compare to other parts of the country and things we could learn from them. So I appreciate all that insight. Your goals for next year are exemplary. I really like the emphasis on neurodevelopmental disorders, because I don't think we recognize that in our community, and it can be a complication with interactions with authority. So that's some good insight I appreciate from you. And then working with Chief Skinner and the entire force to understand our community values and working on protecting us. I like it that you've mentioned helping the victims as well as, getting the criminals. I rated you as satisfactory, and I think that was an error. I would raise it to good, and I appreciate your work, and I look forward to working with you next year.
Eddie.
Thank you. I appreciate your availability, and apparently the forms that you sent out to people, I like that. I would like to know what the follow-up was after you get back responses from people, whether there's a follow-up to people who were, most people seemed satisfied, but if they weren't, I wonder if there was any follow-up. Was there?
Not often enough, no.
I think it would be good to follow up, but I like that, and I like the reports. I would hope that you would go to more neighborhood meetings. I know there are a lot of neighborhoods, but I think it would be good to try to get to all of them eventually. What was I thinking? Just lost my thought for a minute. I need to, whenever I hear people criticize your predecessors, I have to say, I think they were both very competent. And we keep hearing people say that they weren't adequate. I think they were. I think when you have a woman come in to be the first person in a job, it's very difficult when it's a new job. But that's not your problem that they had difficulty. But I think the police, nobody likes to be supervised or looked at. And from what I hear, the police are happy with you. That's good. Thank you.
Any other comments? Alan and Greg. Greg first, okay.
Thanks, Mayor. Again, I'll echo the sentiments that have been made by my fellow councilors around the table. I think you've done an excellent job. You've done an excellent job in terms of outreach to the community, particularly to minority communities. I think that I will disagree with Betty on one point, though. I think that you did walk into a very contentious and adversarial situation when you got the job. And I wasn't on council then, but I was, closely observing what was going on at that time. And you have, taken this office and given it the level of professionalism and competency and built trust in the community that I think is incredibly important. As I go around the state and around the country to National League of Cities meetings and League of Oregon Cities meetings, I am often contacted by fellow city councilors, mayors, and other professionals who comment on the level of professionalism that your office has, want to know how are we doing it. I said, well, we got a great auditor. That's how we're doing it. And your tenure here is very well appreciated, not only by me, but many people in our community. And so you have become, your office has become the model or the best practice for police auditors around the country. And I do appreciate the fact that, your relationship with the police department is by definition to some degree adversarial, but you have taken that role and have been able to work with the police department in ways that have mitigated that role by definition, and have sought to, work together with the police and address issues in a very timely fashion and an efficient fashion. And so, outstanding job, and keep up the good work.
Thank you. Alan?
Yeah, Mark, I rated you as excellent as well, and I very much appreciate the outreach you've done over the year. It was one of the things that people commented on, in particular myself, last year, and making sure that it happened. You did that in spades, so excellent. And I think that you have, over the year, have done a great job and an excellent job. You make it look easy, and I know it ain't easy, so that's the hallmark of a professional, I think. And your excellence, I think, is two things come to mind. One is the national reputation that you have, that Greg eloquently spoke to, and people seek you for speaking engagements about how this is supposed to work. And secondly, I guess another metric I'd point to is the amount of internal EPD complaints that go to you because they trust you. That you'll be fair and impartial, which is the whole purpose of the police auditors, to treat those complaints, whether they be internal or external, to be fair and impartial about getting to the truth, and you've done that in spades. So thank you for your hard work, and I hope you retire here.
Any other comments? No? So I think, do you have anything? Yes.
We actually have a few more orders of business related to this.
Right. I just didn't know if Mark wanted to speak in this open session first before we got to that. There you go.
Move on.
I won't move on yet.
I just wanted to elaborate a little on, especially on the community engagements. We have our core competencies, and they can seem to consume an awful lot of time, and I wish we had an opportunity to go out more individually on the feedback issues, and we're really trying very hard to do that. And so I appreciate the community's patience. As I said, I think over 9 years we've had over 3,200 complaints, and a few are repeaters or regular repeaters. But I figure we're touched somewhere between 25 and 2,800 different people who've had police contact. So I think that that's pretty high. We had someone from the New York City Civilian Review Board in our office on Friday, and as we rattled off all these statistics, they were amazed, and they're New York City. I think we're really trying to, again, get our core competencies underway and then go from there. And again, I really appreciate having the opportunity to work here. I look forward to working with Chief Skinner about some of the issues we talked about in executive session, and hopefully, again, sort of get a handle on some of those issues. I've certainly been pretty tough with command staff and what the expectations are, and those are a lot of times passed on to me from the line officers. And so we're going to continue to do that as well. But I want to again thank all of you for these great 9 years. Hope to be around for a few more, and look forward to working with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now I'll let you walk us through the next pieces.
Yeah. Perfect. So we have recommendations for a possible amendment to Mark's contract. His current contract has language in it that points back to consideration for a cost of living increase at the same time as other exempt employees are considered for that. And in this last year, we've undergone a system change to our exempt salary process, and we no longer have what we're using or calling a COLA. We have what's considered a market adjustment pay, which is similar to a COLA, and so we would want his contract to reflect that so that that could be applied that way. And then in addition, it's my understanding that council leadership was potentially interested in moving to where Mark would no longer be on a 6-step system and just have a one set amount. And so if that is the case, we do have some recommended motion language that could incorporate both of those things. If he did move away from the 6-step system, you all could consider potential increases onto that. As of right now, he is on a 6-step system and he is at the top step.
Could you explain what a 6-step system is?
So basically, we have 6 predetermined steps that basically have about 4.5% between each step, and so each year, with successful performance, Mark would move from step 1 into step 2. So it's basically how he gets his merit increase. And Mark has been at step 6 for several years. You probably know longer than I do. 3 at least.
And the initiative came from me, is they adjusted the ranges for everyone. Historically, I've been at a division director level or captain level, and so they can do that internally, but then council has to have a different exercise to make for me. So as they all adjusted, mine stayed, and so my thought was the same as it is with your other employee, the city manager, is one number. You have one number for the city manager instead of having these ranges that every time if all the other employees, their range changes, then we have to come back separately to council to not do that. And so it was my idea that we just have the one number, and President Clark when Alan was president, we talked about that particular issue. So I was the one that brought forward that initiative to do it that way, rather than being part of the city's salary schedule, if you will, that I am, like the other council employee, the city manager, is that one number per year.
Great. And so I had And Counselor Taylor, I don't know if you and Counselor Clark had an opportunity to talk about this as council leadership, but.
He talked about it, I didn't.
Okay.
And I.
So, I mean, we have a motion language that would make these, so it's kind of two pieces for you to consider right now. One is the merit increase to Mr. Gisner's salary based on his current base salary right now. And then anywhere from, I think, you proposed like anywhere from 1% to 5% was kind of where we were looking at. So if we want to bring Mr. Gisner's contract kind of just more consistent generally with what you have for the city manager, which is a base salary, a range of 1% to 5% for your merit increases, and then, you know, deleting the references to the steps and the COLA and that thing. So moving forward, you have two things you can talk about right now. Is one would be awarding him a merit increase anywhere from 1% to 5%, and we have those numbers for you, what that would look like based on his current. And I had these emails with Councilor Clark, but unfortunately he's not here. And then also a motion language, a motion that could be made once you kind of reach that first decision.
So just to make sure I understand, if we go to the one number as proposed, and it's just as we do with the city manager, then the COLA or the new COLA and the step both go away. They're replaced by that one number, or does the COLA still?
So the COLA would, reference to the term COLA would go away. There's two things that are actually different about Mr. Gisner's contract. One is that there is the reference to the COLA, but two, you all as a council actually have to say, yes, he gets that COLA every year. So, which is different than the city managers, which is there's a reference to a COLA, but it also automatically happens. So the proposed contract amendment would be, one, change the reference to COLA to a market adjustment, and two, have that happen automatically at the same time that it happens for all the other non-reps. So, you would have the base number. Currently, he's at $61.24 an hour with an annual salary of $127,379.20. So if you so that's his current base salary, and so then if you wanted to award a merit increase to that, that would be included in the contract as his new base. The MAP, the market adjustment, would happen annually, and then at his annual evaluation each year, you could award another merit increase. So that's kind of what we're.
Okay.
And
right.
I've asked, when I spoke to President Clark, given the number, I know when the city manager gets excellence, on average, that merit was 5%. And as I stated earlier, I've had excellence in over 73% of my evaluations. Then I would respectfully make that request this year. I haven't made that request in the past, but I am making that request this year. I'm from the Midwest, so we don't like to talk about this stuff anyway. So that's my request respectfully.
So number. A 5% merit increase would increase his base salary to $133,744.
Okay. All right.
And we have these if we want to.
That's great. Yes, I think that'd be helpful for people to have.
Yeah.
And I wanted to add, and again, I hate to talk about this, but it's still 5,000 less than the previous range where I was at the top.
Right.
I'm still not at that top of where that new range has been set with my prior peers, if you will,
Right.
or my
Yes.
counterparts.
We've lost a couple of years, essentially, of keeping you.
Again, Mark?
No, with the new top step for the division managers is 138. And so we're asking to go to 133.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and I was always in alignment with them until the new changes that they've made to the market rate formulas and things that I don't really know all that much about.
Well, and that's just the range.
Right.
So it's not that people crosswalked over all at the top. So if you were at the top of the step, that didn't mean you became top of the new range. But that range is definitely, your range was 88. That's range 88 was the 6 steps, and the new range is bigger than that.
Gotcha.
But it's not that everybody's at the top.
Right, right. So I have a comment from Claire. Anybody else? Alan? Okay, take it away, Claire. Oh, and Emily. Got it.
So just wondering if we make this change to the contract in terms of eliminating the step structure and just using a base salary, that would apply to the city auditor's position, not just, I mean, Mark is holding that position right now, and many of us hope he stays there, but just thinking of it as a position as opposed to Mark, that would apply to that employee going forward.
That contract.
It's a contract, so you're making a contract amendment. Yes, I mean, that position will be posted, like, so if you think of when we post our positions online, it would give that base salary. But somebody coming in could negotiate a different contract, because those are, there's 3 contracts that the city council has, but yes.
So it eliminates it for this contract, and if at some point in the future we said, oh, we really like that step situation, we could
Absolutely. You could bring it back. You could negotiate a different contract with a different employee.
Okay. That was my question.
Okay, Alan?
That was also my question. So
Okay.
basically, we could reinstitute it if we got, after Mark retires here several years, we could reinstitute that step and range process.
Emily?
Thank you. I think I'm asking the mayor's question again, but would the new cost of living be in addition to the money listed on this?
Yes.
And so how much is that? And is the percentage based on the new salary or the old salary?
So that wouldn't happen. So the way the market adjustment pays don't happen until January. So it would, once it's determined for all the non-reps, it would apply to, if you make this contract amendment for Mr. Gisner, it would apply to him in January in that amount. I don't know if we know what that will be right now. But the market adjustment will happen at the same time as the other non-reps in the same amount. The merit will be independent, that will be your decision, and it will happen around this time every year.
And it would be based on the new salary, which includes the new cost of living.
Correct.
Rather than the salary from last year.
Correct.
So we don't know how much that would be.
What the market adjustment will be?
Roughly in January?
It's trending around 3% for this January. But each year it's determined the same way a COLA was determined in the past. It's determined each year looking at a number of factors.
So that would kind of add up to 8% a year if you got top marks?
For this year. Yeah.
It could. So one is just to keep on track with the others, and the other is completely then within your discretion. Yes.
Mike, I know you're trying to catch up, but this, I know, is one of your issues. Would you like to comment?
If we're ready for a motion at this time, then I have that, but I don't have a comment other than.
Okay.
Well.
Yes, I think we're ready for a motion.
Okay. I guess I will say before I do that, I apologize for being late this evening. I did actually see and hear a snippet of some of my colleagues' comments, and I too believe that you are doing an excellent job. I believe that we read so little these days about the controversies involving police auditing and the police department in Eugene, largely because you took over the office. And I appreciate the fact that you've instilled that level of confidence in the people of our community and helped to foster more trust in the police department and the process. So good work. I have this motion that move that the council award the police auditor a 5% merit salary increase, which sets the police auditor's annual base salary at $133,744 annually, $64.30 an hour.
Second.
And, I'm sorry, it's a pretty long one. I apologize. I got to get the rest of this here.
What's there?
And approve amendments to the police auditor's employment contract to 1, award the police auditor's market rate adjustment, previously known as COLAs, at the same time each year and at the same percentage as the MAP given to the non-represented employee group, and that 2, the same percentage, excuse me, I'm having trouble with the line here. State that the police auditor is eligible for an annual 1 to 5% council-approved salary merit increase based on the police auditor's satisfactory achievement of expectations and goals as set forth by the council each year, and that 3, delete reference to pay range 88. The council president is authorized to execute a contract consistent with this motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Claire, Betty? Go for it.
So I support this motion. I think your performance merits the top-level merit increase, and you've been you've demurred in the past to ask for that or the COLA, and so I did have two questions. At one point, if my memory is correct, that Mark requested some additional vacation time in lieu of taking a salary increase. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And so it does his vacations at that same level now?
Correct.
Okay.
Or I believe when he requested them before, it was for a one-time.
It was one time. Okay.
Yes, it's just
so
for one time.
because while I totally support vacation time, I also want you at the office doing your good work.
Sorry, dude.
Doing your good work. So I would actually rather give you a salary increase than more vacation time at this point. And then the second thing is, will the council be informed when that market adjustment occurs on the police auditor's salary, since we're not involved in any of the other HR functions? Okay. Thank you. That's good.
Yeah. Right. Betty?
I think we're already paying enough regardless of how good the job is. And I think we have people working for the city for very small amounts of money, working full-time, doing a good job. And I think the execs are already paid well enough. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Ready for a vote? All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 opposed, 1, and it passes. Thank you very much, and that's our only order of business, right? Thank you very much, Mark, for everything you do, for your clarity, and I think for putting us on a good course in terms of your salary as well. So
thank you.
Appreciate that.
I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Okay. Okay, we're going to have a changing of the guard here a little bit. And we are now about to go into executive session again, so I'll read the rules one more time. The Eugene City Council will now meet in executive session held pursuant to ORS 192.6602I to discuss performance evaluations of public officers and employees. Representatives of the news media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend the executive session. All other members of the audience are asked to leave the room. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decision may be made in executive session. At the end of the executive session, we may return to open session and welcome the audience back into the room. So I'll wait. council meeting, and we'll just wait for the knock on the ceiling. Thank you. Thank you. All right, welcome to the second half of our city council meeting, a discussion of city manager evaluation, and I'll turn it over to you, Carrie.
Great. Good evening. My name's Carrie Baraldo. I'm the interim HR director, and tonight we are here for the annual evaluation process for city manager John Rees. John was hired as the Eugene city manager on April 14th, 2008, so this is his 9th evaluation process. This year's feedback process included a couple of key questions framed from agreed upon performance dimensions, which were sent to the executive leaders of each city department, employees who had worked closely with John over the last year, our union leadership, as well as a select group of community members. A summary of this feedback and the city manager's self-evaluation was sent to council prior to this session, and I'll turn it over to you all to provide him with your feedback.
That is wonderful, so thank you. Thank you for that introduction. I have a couple of counselors already in the queue.
Chris.
3. Okay, I have Alan, Mike, Chris, Claire, Jennifer, Emily, Betty, and
Clean sweep.
Greg. Okay, good, and I'll put myself last. So let's start with Alan.
John, I think you and the city have had a really good year in 2017 up to the middle of 2018. I've been involved with 5 city managers, and I think you're one of the best we've ever had in the last several decades. So I think your leadership and your financial acumen continue to serve the city extremely well. You continue to have the ability to create a stable environment while moving forward on some really tough issues, and that I think is one of your biggest strengths. I think you're well respected by staff and the community, which enables you to get things done and rack up some impressive accomplishments. Passing the library levy, the road bond, the Parks and Rec bond levy. The voters, I think, in part rejected the auditor because of trust in city government to a degree. All show that while not as good as we want, the citizens of Eugene have trust in our city government. And your work is reflected even further in a recent survey where over 60% of the citizens of Eugene said we're moving in the right direction. And I think that is a lot to do with your leadership. So I think you've done an excellent job this year as our city manager, and I hope you'll keep up the good work. Over the last year, I'll just note a couple of accomplishments that I thought were particularly stood out for me. Another year of financial excellence and budget management where other cities have floundered. We just keep going along with a very solid financial background. Successful passage of the Parks Bond Levy and the outstanding work that was done there and the award that they won for community outreach, I think really set the bar very high. The riverfront development, I had my doubts whether we're going to get this far so fast, and still remains to be seen, but I'm impressed with what you've done in moving us forward and moving this project forward. Recruiting the new and hiring a new police chief process was very inclusive of the community. The outreach that you did, the selection of Chief Skinner seems to be an excellent choice, and again, keeping with your track record of great management of executive management. Downtown is better and safer, and we've come a long way, but we're not quite there yet, so we still have work to do there. Making the park blocks more inviting and more used has really changed the character and appeal of that whole area. We're not there yet either, but we still have more work to do. The River Road Santa Clara project and the amount of positive feedback and the process that we did there, especially in contrast to the South Willamette process, is another hallmark of it this year. And I think you just continue to have an excellent, very competent, responsive, and stable executive management team. You know, the transition to this new executive management team after was fairly seamless. We lost 3 very, very long-term executive managers, and the people you put in place have just been doing a great job. And then finally, we've made important strides on implementing the climate recovery ordinance with the new hiring of CRO analyst and the kickoff of the CAP 2.0. So all those are good, and if I have time, I'd like another round.
Great. All right, Mike.
Thank you, Mayor. John, I want to say thank you for another year of excellent work. I rate your work this year excellent. One of the neat things about being a counselor is some of the things you get to see that happen inside the city government that not everybody gets to see by watching on TV or reading in the paper or talking with friends and that sort of thing. And if everybody could see some of the things that I have seen in the last couple of years, they would know what I know about how difficult it must have been to sit in your chair for the last couple of years as everyone around you at that executive table has, for their reasons, moved on to other things. And I think, in the last 3 years, I think maybe Parks and Rec, Cultural Services, I think Renee may be the only person still in the same chair that was there, 3 years ago. And yet, I would defy the community to say they'd seen even so much as a ripple in the water as the ship of our city's state glides on through. I think things have gone very smoothly under conditions that might have been challenging for others. I agree with Alan that while other cities face financial challenges through the tumultuous financial times of previous years, we didn't. We had great financial strength through all of that, largely due to your leadership. So I consider us lucky to have you in the position. I think you've earned the rating that you've been given. And I, again, say thank you.
Chris.
Thank you. Actually, one of the real pleasures I have was having been the council president when John was hired and negotiated his contract with him. And that was really, I think, one of the high points for me, because I think it was the right choice then, and 10 years later, I still think it was very much the right choice. And I think one of the interesting things for me is how much you managed to get done when there is so much to get done. I talked about bringing the urban growth boundary in for a landing, the riverfront acquisition process, all the things you've done internally in terms of replacing your entire executive staff and doing it in a way that maintained continuity, which I thought was really very important. And that you continue to navigate that delicate balance between being the operational manager and trying to make real the policy decisions that we make every day. And oftentimes people in the community are unhappy with the city, but what they're really unhappy with is the decisions we make. And you're required to implement our decisions in whatever form those take. And I think trying to figure out how to balance that is good. There are some things within the operational realm that you're in control of, and those are the feedbacks that we give you regularly in terms of the kinds of things you can do to help that work better. But it's nothing big. It's nothing huge. In fact, I can remember the definition of accountability someone once gave me was things over which you had the responsibility and the authority. And in some cases, you don't really have the authority or the resources to do something because someone else in the community is doing it, but yet you get blamed for it. And I think it's important for us to be able to recognize that those things over which you have the authority and the resources are the things we should be judging you on, and not by things that are outside of your control or are the things that we do. So I think for those things over which you are accountable, where you have that authority and where you have those resources, I think you do an excellent job, and that's how I rated you. And I think what we can do is to make sure that in those areas where we can improve the relationship so that you can either have more authority or more resources, or can implement our policy in a way that's more transparent and effective, I think that will be beneficial as well. But I don't really have any major complaints. I think you've done a really good job once again, and I think the city is very lucky to have you.
Claire.
Thank you. Well, thank you, John, for your excellent service again this year. I gave you an excellent evaluation, and I appreciated your self-evaluation document as well. I thought that was an elegant way to approach that, providing us with that information. So I think amongst your accomplishments, you helped ensure the success of our parks bond and levy and the road bond by tasking your staff with doing the hard work to prepare those things for public scrutiny, for our scrutiny and the public. I'm very pleased with how we finally completed the Envision Eugene process, which was well underway when I came on council in 2012, and where we are with the eWeb development and many of the other projects that other councilors have listed. I appreciate the trust that you put in your staff to respond directly to council's questions and to provide us with the information we need to do our jobs well. That speaks volumes to the way you lead. You gave us a well-reasoned budget that was responsive to what you heard both from the council and the public about priorities, and you continued to effectively advise us during that process on how to be responsible stewards of the public's money and trust. And as I mentioned in executive session, I've appreciated the specific things you have done to help move forward things that affect my constituents in my ward, such as securing funding for the Railroad Road Quiet Zone and the River Road Santa Clara planning process. But you've also consistently helped us as councilors understand the broader context for our work and the decisions that we make by reminding us how they may benefit or harm our community as a whole and what the implications of our actions mean for the welfare of our city. So that, I think, is such an important role, and you play it very, very well. And I also appreciate that you stay out of the politics involved in our work and stay properly focused on carrying out the policy direction of this elected body. And then just on a personal note, I think back in 2008, I might have teased you at one point about your convertible Miata, which I believe you are still driving. And now in the 90-degree heat, you can laugh at me. So.
All right, Jennifer.
Thank you. I want to agree with the list of successes my colleagues have commented on, and I wanted to talk just really briefly on your communication style. I very much appreciate how you are willing to meet, to discuss issues, to see how I feel and give me historical context when I need it. And more than just you willing to do that, I feel like you show an example because all of your staff is willing to do the same thing. And I very much appreciate the example you've set and how that has filtered all the way through the ranks. So thank you so much for your service. And I also gave you an excellent rank.
All right, Emily.
Thank you. When I set out to do this, I took out all the agendas from the last year and made a list of what we've talked about, and it's huge. I think the only way we did that is because you have a good team and a good relationship with staff. Including being able to organize our many, many requests and put them into a priority so that there can be movement forward. I would like some more really brief updates on things that go on for a long time, just so I know they're still in the works. I'll remember something like, oh, wayfinding. So, and we ask questions. It'd be cool if somebody took a list of those because sometimes I think they get lost, and I really need that information. I appreciate your patience with my many interests in operations, but it's my policy to have good operations. I appreciate your budget, especially the philosophy of one-time funding for one-time spending. I would have a hard time with that, but it really does make sense. And I appreciate the UNA. It helps us see what is being considered in the future. And I appreciated your help with my drafting my successful motions for the budget. I appreciate the efforts downtown immensely, and a big part of it is our community justice programs, which I enthusiastically support. Look forward to continued downtown programming. We are still teetering, and we really need to keep up the pressure. I love the new newspaper ads that I've asked for, and encourage more outreach, multimedia of all sorts and personal. It's how we keep the community involved with what we're doing, and I can't do what I'm doing if the community doesn't interact. And to do that, I need them to know what's going on, so I appreciate that support. Answer a few more of my emails, so I would love that. And I really appreciate the goals for next year, also the accomplishments other people have mentioned. Really need to find that revenue for public safety. I want us to get real about homelessness. We're not really sheltering any more people. And the CRO, climate recovery, needs a kick in the pants. I hear about measuring and outreach, but not what I should actually do. And more dog parks. Thanks for your work. I gave you a good rating, which I will point out is better than last year.
Betty.
Thank you. First, it's difficult when you say accomplishments in the last year. I start thinking what happened in the last year and what date did that start? But I think the downtown activity is good. There are some places to sit now. I would like to see a lot more places to sit, a lot more chairs. Recently, there were a lot of young people blocking the sidewalk, and I asked them to move to the side. They did, and I thought afterwards, I thought it'd be nice if they had a place to sit down and talk to each other instead of standing or sitting on the sidewalk. Some starting investment in local financial institutions is good. Things I would like you to do. 10 neighborhood meetings. I think all the neighborhoods, not all at once, but eventually, I think it'd be good if you showed up at all the neighborhood meetings. And I don't feel that I should have to keep track of what I ask for, and frequently that things just get lost. I get the message, get back to you, and it gets lost, and the work sessions get postponed interminably. And then when they do happen, sometimes there's no meat to it. There's no possible actions. And I would like to see some possible actions, whether you approve of them or not, but you could do this or this or this, I think would be good. One thing I really appreciate, which is every year, that you have, you're willing for us to speak to department heads, and that former city managers have said, you have to go through me. And that's, I think that is a big improvement. I would hope that we would make some progress on a homeless shelter and opening those. It seems like the big things come before the simple things, like opening the walls on Kesey Square should be simple. And taking care of local people and local things instead of focusing on big projects like the riverfront and 2021 and so forth. And I hope that we can get somebody, I keep saying this, but somebody who will answer questions, who will tell people where to go to get their answers. Public service officer, which we used to have. And I would like to see that restored. And of course, I would like to see free parking downtown. I do not think that downtown is better than it was. If you walk around, you'll see a lot of empty storefronts. And I don't know that we can say that I know there are efforts being made, and that's good, but thank you.
Thank you. And Mike? Oh, no.
Is he going to get 5 minutes again?
Greg, sorry.
Thank you for the round
I was
two.
used to having you in the last, but actually it's Greg. There we go. Spoke before I looked. Yeah.
I'm just the unknown guy at the table. But anyway, John, I think that, to repeat what I said in the earlier session, that I think you've done an outstanding job this year. I will note 4 things that have come up in terms of on my radar screen. Again, I'll underscore the fact that you have had a major transition in senior leadership at the city, that you have had, as by my count, as I was off earlier, but 7 major department heads that have turned over or are in the process of turning over. And you've managed that transition smoothly and with literally without a hiccup. The Parks and Bond Levy, I'm excited that it passed. I'm looking forward to what your staff has prepared for the city in terms of that, and what we're going to be doing here in the not so distant future to implement particularly the bond improvements that we're looking at over the breadth of the city. I think that the other thing too, and I think that that it's been brought up as well at the table. I appreciate the fact that there's an open door policy with communicating with city staff, and that we don't have to go through the manager to have that line of communication. A lot of things that we do can be taken care of with a phone call or a quick email, and it doesn't really have to go through you. And I appreciate you empowering your staff to be able to communicate with us as city councilors. And then I'm just going to bring up one pet peeve, and that is phone etiquette. I would appreciate it if when we call in or anybody in the public calls in that staff would identify themselves at least by first name. I think it's an important way to communicate, because sometimes you know, I'll call in and I recognize voices, but I don't want to, you know, call people by the wrong name if I don't, you know, if I'm like, you know, I've got, you know, Elena on my mind and I'm calling Sarita. So I want to, you know, I think it's important that people have that level of communication and know who they're talking to when they call into the city. And it's part of a customer service kind of culture that I think that you're trying to cultivate, and I'd like to see that continued.
We are over time, so I'm just going to be very brief here, which is basically agreeing with many of the things that my colleagues have said around the table and just adding two pieces. One is an agreement about looking forward to working on other ways in which we can communicate to the public and engage with the public. Appreciate your openness always to how we do that work, and being willing to always think outside the box. And just to say that it's so clear to all of us that you're this sort of steady, clear, calm leadership that you provide has enabled us to really move forward effectively as a city this year and over a number of years, and has enabled you to create a very strong and stable executive team. And that I very much appreciate that in our regular meetings, even when we're dealing with something about which you and I don't see eye to eye, that it's a really good conversation. And so that's an incredible value, that we learn, we have an open conversation, and we take the next step. And I think that's typical of your leadership, and we all benefit from that. So thank you very much. And I believe we are closed with business. We don't have anything else we need to, we do have one more piece of business. Okay. So.
There's a small contract amendment, and it's that similar market adjustment pay COLA change that we're asking you to make to his.
Guys, one more thing here.
Sorry.
The motion regarding changing the, Carrie will get that to you. The language that changes the reference to a COLA to the market adjustment pay.
Okay. Then, in that case, I would move that the council approve an amendment to the city manager's employment contract to award the city manager market rate adjustments, or MAPs, previously known as a COLA, excuse me, at the same time each year and at the same percentage as the MAPs given to the non-represented employee groups. The council president is authorized to execute a contract consistent with this motion.
Second.
Any discussion, clarification needed? All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that passes, and that is the close of our business. Thank you very much. We'll see you again at 7:30.